Hey, this is Henrik, and today I hope to illustrate the importance of clarity in creating appealing imagery. Do you remember Where's Waldo by the artist Martin Hanford? This is a game of visual overload, where each tableau is designed to obscure the focal point of the image. Everything is equally detailed and equally loud, making Waldo very difficult to find. This creates a kind of mental tension that we now feel compelled to resolve, which is of course the premise of the game. Now, we enjoy finding Waldo because we enjoy resolving that tension. Our brains crave clarity, so that flash of recognition is tinged with reward as the threat of not knowing is neutralized and we can rest. Conversely, an image without any clear focal point can feel annoying and, pointless. If we never find Waldo, we're just left there feeling tense and stupid. The thing I'm getting at here is that there is actually a direct link between how easily we process something visually and how good we feel about it. Take these two sentences, for example. Do you notice how it's much easier to read the one on the right? The other one is more detailed, and you could argue that it's more interesting, but I find I'm almost reluctant to look at it because the one on the right is just so much more comfortable. This is called the perceptual fluency effect. When something is visually clear and easy to understand, it just feels better. This is why stylization can be so effective. We're essentially selecting for visual and conceptual clarity. And now I want to show you how I apply these principles when I'm just starting to flesh out a scene. So I'm in Blender and I want to do a rough concept for some kind of platform game. So we have our focal point here, and we actually have conceptual clarity in that you kind of already know what to do in this context. The name of the game for me is going to be making sure that I support that clarity as I go. And we got to start somewhere, so I drop in some midground blobs and call those rocks. I apply a cracked material to these and scatter some cubes to suggest some smaller rocky shapes. And I add some high contrast rocks along the sides so the player kind of knows where to go. Then I throw in some water, which helps define the ground plane, and I give that ground a rocky material and then brighten the top faces to start hinting at a path. And now I decide that this is in a forest, so I scatter some placeholder trees, layering in some thinner ones for variety. And that flat water line was bugging me, so I break that up with some foreground rocks, also creating a bit more depth. And now things are starting to get pretty busy. We can quickly get into Waldo territory here, so I add some bright mist to separate the midground out from the background, creating a clear visual hierarchy. And I'm not sure what that spiky thing is, but I know it's important, so I give that a light base with very dark spikes for a lot of contrast against the mist, really emphasizing their significance to the player. Then I add a few more to the midground for consistency. And we're losing the ground plane now, so I bring in some bright grassy details to help mark the walkable areas. And things are feeling a bit gloomy, so I add a warm color wash with a gradient map. And now I want to calm down that background a little bit more and add some more natural breakup back there. So I add some simple terrain features angled to support my focal point, noting that the spikes still read clearly as the mist is still washing out the background. And now it's time to figure out these trees. And here I start with this, which I like, but it's taking up too much visual bandwidth. The curling shapes create a lot of horizontal movement, kind of snagging our eyes and keeping us away from the ground plane, which is confusing. So I reorient those contours downward towards the center of interest. But it's feeling flat, so I want to add some form. And since the goal is to guide the eye downward, I decide to add some occlusion underneath each branch, creating subtle arrows that add both volume and clarity to the trees. Then I introduce some directional light for even more interest, which also reinforces that downward flow. Now I want a bit of storytelling in here, so I decide that this forest is dying. And I keep it simple for now and put a bunch of stumps on this second tree layer to communicate that idea. Now you might wonder, aren't we repeating the same eye snags as with those other trees? And yes, we are, but the difference is I want you to notice these trees, because their stark contrast to the thick trees behind kind of rewards you with a story point. I decide it's okay for them to distract you a little bit because there's something I want you to see. And now I can throw your visual cortex a bone by creating an additional layer of thin vertical branches, smoothing our eye's descent a little and further emphasizing the story point. If I really want to buddy up to your visual cortex though, I could introduce some depth of field in here, like that. Everybody likes depth of field, and by now, hopefully you understand why. It makes it very obvious what matters much and what matters less, which is paramount as far as our brain is concerned. And that is a pretty good blueprint, I think. From here, I feel like I have a clear foundation to build on for a more refined design path. The overall idea is to design for the eye first. The eye doesn't really see trees, rocks, or mist, or things of that nature. It sees shapes, contours, and contrasts. And if we organize them well, whatever they ultimately represent is going to be that much more enjoyable to look at. I hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching.